House Republicans, would you use the word barreling toward a Biden impeachment? Maybe not necessarily, while many are on board with at least launching a probe into looking into it when they reconvene in September. Some are dragging their feet. Joining us now to talk about that, political strategist, commentator, Young Voices. Her name is Elizabeth Grace Matthew and joins us here on your Morning Wake-Up. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
So many are on board, at least for an inquiry into a Biden impeachment. I think Kevin McCarthy has said they're flirting with that, so to speak. I'm paraphrasing. I don't think he used those words, but he said that there's a good chance they're going to launch an inquiry in September. But why are some dragging their feet? You would think all the GOP members would go like, you betcha, let's go.
Well, we have only had 4, impeachment proceedings in the history of the country. And so I think that the long-term understanding of what that means and how the country receives those, proceedings can make a lot of people nervous that, to do an inquiry should involve something concrete. I believe that is what some of the senators and congressmen who are not interested in moving to an impeachment inquiry at this time, are saying.
Okay. So the discussion will be, what evidence is there of wrongdoing? It's what is they always say, high crimes and misdemeanors for an impeachment. Mm-hmm. And so they'll look at evidence and then chew that around and decide, is there more needed? And then they'll move forward. What do you think of the odds?
I think it's really hard to say, to be honest. I mean, so the Constitution gives the House the sole power to bring charges against federal officers, including the president. And it is true that the Constitution offers no specific guidelines on rules for impeachment inquiries. So the House can determine its own rules of parliamentary conduct, essentially. So they can allow an impeachment inquiry to go forward without an initial resolution, but there are probably many who are not comfortable necessarily doing that.
Do you think part of this is they don't want to look like they're doing a tit for tat? Because, as you mentioned, there's been 4 impeachment proceedings in the entire history, and now I've worried about this. Are we on a slippery slope where, okay, you got our guy, remember the impeachments proceedings against Donald Trump, President Trump, they don't want to look to see like, oh, yeah, you got our guy, we're coming after your guy. And then whoever's next wins the next election, oh, yeah, we're coming after your guy, and on and on and on and back and forth it goes.
Yeah, I think in terms of stability of the country, there are those concerns about, the constancy of political polarization leading to a constant move toward impeachment inquiry in each administration. I do think that's part of the concern, yeah.
What do you, this aside from impeachment, let me get your take on this for the presidential election. What do you think the prospects are of a third party? We've heard this thing within the Republican ranks of a no-name, you know what I mean? What's the term they're using? I always forget that. Anyway, it's like a third.
I'm on it too, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Disruptor, yeah.
Has that got legs?
It's really hard to say, of course, but I would say historically speaking, there's no precedent for it, right, in the modern history of the country.
Yeah.
I think that it is absolutely the case that powerful candidates who are not one of the 2 major party candidates could decide the results of the election if they peel enough votes away from either of the primary candidates. But I do not necessarily think that they have a chance to win the presidency.
Gotcha. Well, regardless, it's going to be an exciting, already has been, just based on the energy at that first debate the other night.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Elizabeth Grace.
And we're still 15 months out.
Yeah, let's let that sink in. This is just, if this is a theme park, we're just standing in line at the gate. That's what we're doing. Talking with Elizabeth Grace Matthew, a political strategist, commentator with Young Voices. So the odds of an impeachment against President Joe Biden, we'll have to see. Kevin McCarthy has said, they will look into it, right? I mean, this is not, they're just thinking about looking into it. They were definitely going to look into it.
I think, as you mentioned, there's some division within the Republican Party about whether to bring an actual impeachment inquiry or not. But I think that is definitely, in all likelihood, a conversation that they're having, yes.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that they need more evidence. Boy, oh boy, it seems like it's stacking up.
Yeah, I think it's just a question of, what they're comfortable with in terms of what they think about the likelihood of what would be in the resolution were they to bring one. It's a three-step process, right? So, Article 1 of the Constitution gives the House the power to impeach and the Senate the power to try. And then Article 2, allows the officer to be removed from office for treason, bribery, or other high crimes or misdemeanors. And so I'm sure that there's a lot of conversations about how what they know and what they don't know would stack up into those different areas that they're looking at.
Yeah. Elizabeth, you know that the part of the constitutional article that says, is it 25, that says the president's not competent enough, can't do the job. They brought that up with President Trump, and I still can't get around whenever President Biden speaks or does something, he stumbles, he'll forget. I don't know why they haven't gone down that route yet.
I think that probably, I always try to remember there's a lot that we can see, and then there's a lot that we can't see that folks with more access probably can, right? And so it may be that they don't necessarily, in many cases, think that that would be the most fortuitous road to move down, or it may be the case that, you do have folks worried about the sort of tit for tat that you mentioned in terms of the country, constantly moving toward whatever things they can to unseat or destabilize the current executive.
Yeah. It does seem like a very precarious and unstable time in our country, and I don't like it. I do not like it. Elizabeth Grace Matthew, it's been fun talking to you here. Political strategist, commentator for Young Voices. We'll stay in touch. Have you had your first coffee yet this morning? I mean, I got you awful early.
Not yet, but I plan on it.
All right. Tell me you're not a chai tea person. Sometimes I'll say, you get a first coffee? Oh, I don't do that. I do chai tea. Please, no. Please.
No, I have to say I like both, but I'm a coffee person in the morning.
Thank you. And do regular coffee. Don't put all that frou-frou stuff on top. You're basically having dessert there. Elizabeth, right? Come on.
I hear you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a great day, kiddo. See you later.
You too. Thank you so much.
Yep. 1320 WILS. Back in just a minute.